Have you ever felt your chest burn from a single cruel comment? Laid awake at night, replaying someone's harsh words over and over? But what if you knew those words only have power because you gave them permission to hurt you? Today, you'll learn how to dismantle anger before it even begins. Not by fighting back, but by thinking like a stoic, calm, clear, unshaken. 1. Other people's words can't hurt you unless you let them. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm of words. Criticism, judgment, sarcasm. Voices coming at you from every direction, your workplace, social media, even from the people closest to you. In that moment, you feel pulled into a vortex, anger, defensiveness, the urge to snap back. But then you remember one thing: a storm is just wind, unless you let it sweep you away. Epictetus once said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." It's not the words that hurt you. It's the meaning you assign to them, the weight you give them, the permission you grant. If you don't allow it, they're just noise carried by the wind. This isn't moral advice, it's a survival skill. Especially in a world where everyone has something to say about you. A comment online. A jab in a meeting. A careless remark from someone you love. A man can't live without hearing things he doesn't want to hear. But he can learn how not to let those words penetrate his inner fortress. Real power is found in not reacting. Picture this: you're in a meeting. A colleague takes a jab at you in front of everyone. The room goes quiet. All eyes are on you. Part of you wants to respond immediately, assert yourself, defend your name. But you know, that's the trap. You pause. Breathe. You observe the emotion rising, but you don't act on it. You're not denying that you feel something. But you choose not to let that feeling take the wheel. You choose self-control. And in that moment, you've taken your power back. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The ego wants to react. Reason chooses silence. Every time someone insults you or questions your worth, your ego demands acknowledgement. It wants to set the record straight. It wants validation through words, through a counterattack, through emotional defense. But the ego doesn't know how to distinguish between real threats and emotional illusions. A conscious man doesn't react like an animal backed into a corner. He notices the flare-up and lets it pass. Because he understands, you don't have to react to every word, especially not the ones that aren't worthy of your energy. Every harsh word is a chance to strengthen your core. Next time someone says something that stings, treat it like mental weight training. Don't see it as an attack. See it as your opportunity to practice discipline. To breathe. To choose your response. Instead of firing back, ask yourself, do I really need to respond to this? Am I allowing someone else to define my worth? If I stay silent now, will I respect myself tomorrow? Self-control is not weakness. It's power and restraint. Stoicism doesn't tell you to be passive or endure abuse. It teaches you to choose when to respond wisely and to let go of the rest. Because not every battle is worth your time, your peace, your presence. When you choose silence, it's not because you're weak. It's because you've grown strong enough to not need a fight to prove who you are. Today's practice: pause. Observe. Choose again. Today, if someone tries to hurt you with words, don't react. Try this instead. Count down from 5 before you say or do anything. Even if you're boiling inside, give yourself 5 seconds. Write your emotions down afterward. Just a short note: I felt because, but I chose not to react because. Ask yourself, if I respond now, will I feel proud of myself tomorrow? Do this for 7 days. You'll realize the power was always in your hands, not theirs. This is where you begin again. You can't escape criticism. But you can learn to walk through it like a man through wind. The conscious man doesn't need armor. He has an inner life solid as a stone wall. And it begins with one choice: don't allow. Don't react. Don't lose yourself. Today, ask yourself, if I stay silent and centered, will I respect the man I see in the mirror tomorrow? 2. Words reflect the speaker, not the truth about you. What people say to you always reveals more about them than it does about you. When someone calls you useless, slow, arrogant, or difficult, the first question you should ask isn't, are they right? The better question is, why did they feel the need to say this? A mature man doesn't accept every spoken word as a measured, objective truth. He understands that every opinion, good or bad, is a mirror reflecting the inner world of the speaker. Every judgment is written in the ink of personal history. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." In other words, others' views, feelings, comments, criticisms often say nothing about who you truly are. Someone who once felt abandoned by a man may see your silence as coldness. A competitive colleague may call you arrogant simply because you don't play their games. A father who never felt adequate may label you lazy because you chose a path different from his own. Their minds are talking to themselves, not to you. Not truth, just emotional geography. A harsh word is not a map of who you are. It's just a snapshot from a narrow, distorted lens. Like trying to navigate using a folded map held upside down, follow it, and you lose yourself. If you live according to every passing opinion, you'll no longer know what truly matters to you. Seneca once wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let others misjudge you. That doesn't diminish your worth." The conscious man says, "I am not what they say." When you learn to separate yourself from external labels, something powerful happens. You start living by inner values, not outer validations. You become steadfast in silence, instead of drifting in waves of opinions. You no longer need to be understood. You need only to remain authentic. That's the deepest form of freedom. A simple practice that changes the way you live. Next time someone criticizes you, judges you, or puts a label on you, try this small shift. Step back in your mind. See their words as if you were watching from the outside. Ask silently, what does this say about them, not about me? Write one sentence in response. I am not what they say. I am the response I choose. Do this not once, but every time. Every day. That's how you train an inner strength that doesn't flinch. No one can define you unless you hand them the pen. You can't control what people think or say. But you can fully control how much of yourself you tie to their words. You are not a failure just because someone says you are. You are not difficult just because others feel insecure around you. You only become what they say if you believe them. A question to carry with you today. If I am not what they say, then who am I when no one is watching? How would I live if I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone? 3. Don't react. Just observe. Reacting is instinct. Observing is mastery. It is the sign of a man who has awakened. In modern life, we're bombarded with situations that demand immediate reaction. A passive-aggressive remark, react. A provocative message, react. A stare, a social media comment, a disrespectful email, they all tug at you with one command: defend, explain, retaliate, prove. You react so quickly, you often forget to ask, is this even my response? Epictetus reminds us, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. And the first act of power, the first break from conditioning, is this: do nothing. Just observe. The space between stimulus and response is where freedom lies. Remember the last time someone said something that made your blood boil? Maybe it was a sarcastic jab, an unfair judgment, an openly disrespectful tone. In that moment, your body prepared for battle: tight chest, shallow breath, clenched fists. You were ready to strike back. That's the automatic setting. But if, just if, you had paused, you would have entered a different territory. The territory of sovereignty. Because real freedom begins in the smallest action, the decision not to act just yet. Observation is the root of all virtue. A stoic man doesn't deny his emotions. He simply learns to witness them without becoming them. You can feel anger without becoming an angry man. You can feel hurt without collapsing into victimhood. You can experience insult and still choose dignity. The key is not to suppress what you feel, but to observe it without attachment. Like watching a storm cloud pass overhead, you see it, but you don't chase it into the sky. Why observation is your modern-day superpower? Because the modern world profits off your impulsiveness. It's engineered to keep you emotionally off balance, reactive, engaged, outraged. If you don't learn to observe before responding, you'll always be dancing to someone else's rhythm. The awakened man doesn't attend every fight he's invited to. He only fights when it's necessary, and always on his own terms. A small practice for the strongest men. Today, try something deceptively simple, but transformative. This is not theory. This is mental weightlifting. Practice, observe before you respond. The next time you feel triggered, disrespected, or hurt, do these 3 things. Pause. Do not speak. Do not explain. Do not fight back. Just give yourself 5 seconds of stillness. You are building a new inner space. Feel what's rising inside you. Is your breath tightening? Hands clenching? The urge to put them in their place? Just notice. No need to fix it. No need to act on it. Ask yourself, am I reacting out of ego or out of clarity? Will this reaction move me closer to the man I want to be? If I observed for 30 more seconds, would I choose something different? When you do this every day, every time, you begin to shift. You move from being pulled around to becoming the one who anchors. Observation is what the weak cannot do. It demands the courage to delay gratification. It requires the strength to let emotions pass through without obeying them. Above all, it takes deep self-trust, the belief that you don't need to defend or prove yourself to maintain your worth. This is the posture of a conscious man. Can you do nothing and reclaim everything? You'll be amazed by this. When you refuse to react immediately, you reclaim authorship over your response. You stop being a puppet. You become the writer. Questions to carry into today. If I don't react, will I respect myself more tomorrow? What happens if I just observe, instead of rushing to control? 4. Words only have power if you agree with them. A word is just a sound, until you accept it as truth. That's when it turns into a wound. Most men don't realize this. The insults that hurt them the most are the ones they already fear might be true. If someone calls you a loser, and you've never seen yourself that way, you shrug it off. But if a small voice inside already whispers that you're not enough, then that insult lands like a dagger. The truth is this: no one's words can injure you without your silent permission. Marcus Aurelius said it clearly: choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. You're not hurt because someone said something cruel. You're hurt because, in that moment, you believed it might be true. The hidden agreement that creates your pain. Imagine a stranger walks up to you on the street and says, "You're a terrible violinist." If you've never touched a violin in your life, you'd probably laugh. Why? Because you have zero emotional investment in the statement. It's meaningless to you. But if someone says, "You're a weak man," and that hits you hard, it means somewhere deep down, a part of you fears it might be right. That's where the pain comes from, not from the insult, but from your internal agreement with it. Seneca warned us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The true battlefield isn't out there. It's inside, where you choose to either accept or reject what's being said. A man who doesn't agree can't be defeated. A stoic man doesn't build his self-worth around being liked, admired, or validated. He builds it around values. Virtue. Discipline. Integrity. So when someone tries to humiliate him, discredit him, reduce him, he doesn't collapse. because they're attacking a version of him that doesn't exist in his own mind. And if their words don't find a home in your beliefs, they have nowhere to land. That's why a Stoic doesn't need to be praised to feel strong, nor does he crumble under criticism. He knows that words only become weapons when they echo beliefs you haven't resolved. A real-world practice: reclaim your inner agreement. Next time someone criticizes you or tries to tear you down, ask yourself 3 questions before you absorb their words. Do I agree with what they just said? If not, discard it. It doesn't belong to you. What belief inside me made this hurt? Dig. Don't run. Maybe the wound is older than the person who triggered it. What would I tell a brother if someone said this to him? Say it to yourself. Be the grounded voice you needed. You don't need affirmations. You need clarity. You need to stop co-signing your own suffering. You don't need to prove them wrong, just stop agreeing. The moment you stop agreeing with words meant to harm you, they lose their teeth. The moment you withdraw your consent, you stop bleeding. From now on, remember, the only insults that can hurt you are the ones you believe. The only way to disarm them is to stop handing over your signature. 2 questions for today. What part of me agreed with that insult? What happens if I simply refuse to believe it? 5. Hurtful words reveal the weakness of the speaker. No strong man tries to tear down another. Only the wounded do that. Think about it. When was the last time a deeply grounded, disciplined, self-respecting man insulted you? Mocked you? Tried to humiliate you? Exactly. He didn't. Because men of strength don't need to wound others to feel whole. When someone throws toxic words your way, your first instinct might be to take it personally. To wonder, what's wrong with me? But a Stoic man asks a better question. What must be going on inside them to speak this way? Seneca reminds us, a wise man is indifferent to insults. Not because he is numb, but because he knows the insult is a reflection of the insulter. If someone throws mud at you, you don't get dirty unless you lie down in it. Insults are emotional confessions in disguise. Most verbal attacks aren't about you. They're about the other person's lack of emotional control. Their fear. Their insecurity. They need to offload inner tension onto someone else, usually the nearest target. Criticism without clarity is projection. Sarcasm without empathy is deflection. Anger without responsibility is weakness. So next time you're hit with words meant to sting, pause and see it for what it is. A man bleeding internally, trying to make you bleed too. You don't need to catch that pain. You don't need to carry it forward. The Stoic posture, steady in the storm. There's a posture of power that no insult can penetrate. It's not arrogance. It's not detachment. It's not cold silence. It's the calm clarity of a man who sees clearly. This isn't about me. This is a mirror reflecting their war with themselves. When you adopt that lens, everything changes. You don't suppress the hurt, you simply don't wear it. You don't deny the pain, you just return it to its rightful owner. You stay steady, composed, rooted. Not because you're above it, but because you've trained yourself to see the source. Real practice: reverse the lens. The next time someone insults, mocks, or belittles you, do this instead of reacting. Pause and ask, what wound in them is this coming from? It's never about you. It's always about something in them they haven't faced. Repeat silently, this is their weakness speaking, not my worth. Reclaim the power to define yourself. Reflect later, what would I have said if I saw them as wounded instead of wicked? This opens space for grounded empathy, not submission. This doesn't mean you excuse bad behavior. It means you don't let it colonize your mind. What you internalize, you empower. The words that hurt you the most are the ones you choose to pick up and hold. But you don't have to. You can let them fall to the floor, where they belong. From now on, train yourself to look through the insult, into the soul behind it. And ask, what kind of storm must they be living in, to throw this much lightning? That question will break the trance and restore your center. Questions for today. What if every insult is just someone else's pain with a mask on? Can I stay rooted, knowing their words reveal more about them than me? 6. Choose how you react instead of being controlled by emotion. You are not your first reaction. You are the man who chooses what comes after it. Most people live on autopilot, plugged into a loop, stimulus emotion reaction. Someone disrespects them, they snap. Someone disagrees, they argue. Someone triggers a memory, they spiral. But if you study the Stoics, you'll see the man who wins is never the one who reacts fastest. He's the one who responds with intention. Marcus Aurelius knew this when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Your emotions are signals, not instructions. They're data, not destiny. They're real, but they don't have to be obeyed. Reactivity is the playground of the weak. Here's a truth no one says out loud: anyone can react. That's easy. That's instinct. But to stay calm when provoked, clear when insulted, composed when threatened, that takes practice. That takes spine. When you let emotion run your response, you hand over your authority. You let someone else dictate your next move. Every time you lash out, spiral, defend, or panic, you let the external world play you like a game. But when you pause, breathe, and choose, you break that pattern. You reclaim the throne inside you. The man who trains his reaction rules his life. Imagine every emotion as a wild horse. Most men get thrown off the saddle within seconds. But a Stoic trains himself to hold the reins. To feel the surge, but ride it skillfully. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about leading it. Directing it. Using it as fuel, not letting it become fire that burns everything down. A practice you can start today. When emotion rises, don't resist it. Don't indulge it. Just interrupt it. Create space. Take command. Here's a simple but powerful practice. The 3-second reset. When triggered, pause. Count 3, 2, 1. In that space, shift from reaction to awareness. Ask yourself, what response would the man I respect choose right now? If I act now, will I respect myself tomorrow? Is this my reaction, or a replay of someone else's script? Choose action over impulse. Silence instead of sarcasm. Stillness instead of rage. Strength over speed. Do this once, and you feel the shift. Do it daily, and you become untouchable. If you want to train this daily, you need more than just inspiration. You need structure. You need reminders. You need a brotherhood of men walking the same path. That's why this isn't just content, it's a mental gym. If this message hits something in you, subscribe to keep training. Because control over your reaction is not a quote. It's a discipline. A daily decision. A lifestyle. And if you're serious about building that, you don't do it once a month. You do it every day. Final thought for today. Do I want to be a man who reacts, or a man who chooses? If I were watching myself from the outside, would I follow me? 7. Detach yourself from the words of others. The less attached you are to what others say, the more free and dangerous you become. In a world that feeds off reactions, detachment is a kind of rebellion. When someone insults you and you don't flinch. When someone praises you and you don't cling. When someone misjudges you and you stay unmoved. That's power. That's precision. That's stoicism in motion. But here's the truth. Most men are addicted to validation and haunted by criticism. Why? Because they've built their self-worth on external voices instead of internal values. Epictetus put it bluntly, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. You gave your rope away. You tied your emotions to someone else's words, and now they're pulling you in every direction. The stoic path? Cut the rope. You're not the character they made up in their head. Let's say someone tells you, you're selfish. You never listen. That may or may not be true, but the question is, do you attach your identity to their version of you? Their words are based on their lens, their emotional state, their past. They don't see you. They see a projection of their own history wearing your face. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, they are not referring to me unless I make it about me. Read that again. If their version of you isn't accurate, and you know it, why attach? The moment you detach from how they see you, you reclaim yourself. Detachment is not indifference, it's maturity. This doesn't mean you stop listening or become emotionally numb. It means you stop binding your identity to every opinion in the room. You listen. You weigh it. You discard what doesn't serve your principles. Detachment gives you room to stay open without being pierced. Hear criticism without letting it define you. Receive praise without becoming addicted to it. It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's not ego. It's anchored self-respect. A practice, break the link. Here's a grounded exercise to practice detachment from words, starting today. Next time someone comments on you, pause. Before reacting, ask, do I want this label? Is this true, or is this just their current emotional filter? Write down the statement, but strip their tone. Imagine the words in a neutral voice. See how much of the pain is in the emotion they delivered, not in the words themselves. Ask yourself, who would I be if I didn't care whether this was said at all? What would change if I needed no one to approve or agree with me? The deeper your detachment, the sharper your focus. The less you chase acceptance, the more your presence becomes undeniable. You don't belong to their stories anymore. The moment you stop chasing validation and resisting criticism, you exit the game. And once you're out, you see how rigged it was. People who are attached to every word suffer like prisoners. But those who detach, they walk freely, even when misunderstood. They become men who are defined only by what they stand for, not by who claps or who critiques. Take this with you today. What would I be capable of if I stopped needing to be understood? Who am I when I'm no longer shaped by their words? 8. Accept that no one is perfect, including you and them. The world is not meant to treat you perfectly. And neither are people. One of the most common roots of anger, frustration, and resentment is this silent, unspoken expectation. They should have treated me better. They shouldn't have said that. They should have known better. Should. But here's the stoic truth, should is a trap. People don't operate according to what's reasonable. They operate according to their wounds, their conditioning, their emotions, their fears. And so do you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not to become cynical, but to be prepared. Because the wise man doesn't collapse when people act like people. He expects it. He's ready. And so, he's never truly disturbed. You will be judged unfairly, so what? Someone will misread your silence as arrogance. Someone will interpret your firmness as cruelty. Someone will call your clarity ego. It's going to happen. Again and again. But instead of asking, why would they do that? Ask a better question, have I never done the same? Have you never misunderstood someone and judged them for it? Have you never projected your insecurities onto someone else? Have you never lashed out just because you were hurting? Exactly. This is why humility is so powerful, it's not soft. It's a shield. Because when you accept human imperfection, you stop being surprised. And when you stop being surprised, you stop being reactive. Don't demand from others what you still struggle to master. You want people to always speak kindly, but have you? You want your partner to never raise their voice, but have you? You want strangers to respect you on the internet, but have you never scrolled past someone in judgment? The Stoic approach isn't moral superiority. It's radical clarity about human nature. Seneca once said, "You must not think a man has hurt you if he has merely spoken badly of you. It is your judgment that harms you." And more often than not, it's not just their behavior, it's your expectation that they behave differently that causes the suffering. Practice, expect imperfection. Then practice grace. Here's a grounded daily exercise to reframe the way you process judgment or offense. When someone upsets you, say silently, "This is a human being, imperfect, just like me." Let it land. Breathe into that sentence. Then ask yourself, am I holding them to a standard I myself have never failed? If I allow for their imperfection, what peace becomes possible in me? Journal prompt for the day. What expectations do I carry about how others should treat me? Are they fair, or are they fantasy? This doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or abandon boundaries. It means you move through the world with realistic eyes and a steady core. Because peace isn't found in controlling others, it's found in understanding them. The man who accepts imperfection becomes unshakable. He doesn't waste energy being offended by the inevitable. He sees clearly and chooses wisely. He knows, if he can grant the same grace he needs, he walks lighter, freer, stronger. 2 questions to carry with you today. What if no one is required to be perfect, including me? Can I walk through today expecting less from others and rising more in myself? 9. Focus only on what you can control. Everything else is noise. The world will test you. Your business deal falls through. Your partner says something cold. Your friend betrays you. The markets collapse. Someone misunderstands your silence as weakness. And in those moments, the chaos screams. React. Panic. Fix it all. But a stoic man moves differently. He breathes. He scans the storm. And he locks in on one question. What here is mine to control? Epictetus said it best. Some things are in our control and others not. The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. You will drown if you try to master the ocean. You don't control what they think of you, how your family reacts, what the economy does, how others interpret your words, whether people stay or leave. But you do control the words you speak, the actions you take, the boundaries you uphold, the attitude you bring into the moment, the response you choose, no matter how chaotic it gets. And that is everything. Because control isn't about power over the world. It's power over yourself within it. Let the noise roar. Stay with the signal. Imagine walking into a crowded room. Dozens of voices, music blaring, opinions flying. You don't try to quiet the whole room. You just tune your attention to the one voice that matters, your inner compass. That's how a Stoic lives in a loud, reactive world. He doesn't need silence to stay calm. He's trained his mind to stop chasing what he can't control and commit everything to what he can. Daily practice, the control filter. This is one of the most effective mental practices I can give you. Start it today. Whenever you feel tension, pressure, or frustration, pause and ask, what here is mine to act on? What is outside my hands and needs to be released? Write down 2 columns in your journal or phone. Left side, things outside my control, release them. Right side, things within my control, act on them. Do this for just 7 days, and you'll feel the shift. Choose one small action every day that is within your control. Whether it's showing up early, breathing deeper, listening longer, or walking away. Own it. Do it. Build trust with yourself through what you can command. Where focus goes, strength grows. Every moment you spend fighting what you can't control, you bleed energy. But every moment you pour into what you can control, you build momentum. Let the world be what it is. Let people be who they are. Your peace doesn't come from managing them. It comes from mastering you. 2 questions for today. What am I trying to fix that's not mine to carry? What's the smallest action I can take today, fully within my control, that brings strength back to me? 10. Be grateful for criticism. It makes you stronger. Every insult, every judgment, every misreading of your intent can either harden you or sharpen you. You choose. Most men avoid criticism like it's poison. They fear it. Take it personally. Build armor against it. But a Stoic sees it differently. He doesn't crave criticism. He just knows that when it arrives, it brings information, not injury. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it." Life is long if you know how to use it. The same is true with criticism. It's not that criticism is inherently cruel. It's that most men never learned how to use it. Criticism is a tool, not a threat. Let's be clear. Most criticism is poorly delivered. It's passive-aggressive, emotionally loaded, misdirected. But if you're wise, you won't focus on how it's delivered. You look for the 1% truth that can help you improve. You'll ask, is there something here I can refine? Did I miss something because I was too close to the situation? Is my reaction coming from ego or insight? The man who can do this without defensiveness, that man becomes dangerous. Because while others are offended, he's evolving. Every criticism is a free training session. If someone tells you, you don't listen, you're too blunt, you play it safe, you come off cold, you have a few options. Dismiss it. Internalize it and spiral. Examine it. Refine. Improve. Level up. The Stoic path is always the third. Criticism becomes the forge where strength is made. It strips away ego, sharpens the blade, reveals blind spots. If you let it. Practice, receive, reflect, recode. Here's a real-world practice to start today. When someone critiques you, pause and say, "Thank you. Let me sit with that." Not sarcastically. Not passively. Say it as a man who's ready to evolve. Privately reflect and journal. Is this feedback valid, even slightly? How would my best self respond to this? What would I do differently if I took this as a gift, not an attack? Act on what rings true. Just one tweak. One adjustment. One layer of ego peeled back. You don't have to agree with everything. But if you treat all feedback like a stone to sharpen your blade, you'll walk into every room more composed, more aware, more grounded. The man who welcomes criticism stops fearing the world. He doesn't flinch when judged. He doesn't need applause to feel valid. Because he knows. Growth doesn't come from being seen as perfect, it comes from being willing to adjust. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you unshakable. Final questions to carry with you. What can this criticism teach me that comfort never will? If I use this instead of resist it, who could I become? You don't need the world to change for you to find peace. You only need to change the way you stand in it. In a world that reacts fast, speaks loud, and seeks constant validation, be the man who observes, who chooses, who leads himself. Because when your inner world is anchored, no storm outside can shake you. If this message sharpens something in you, subscribe. Not for more noise, but for more clarity. Not to be entertained, but to be equipped. This channel is your mental gym. Come train. Now tell me, what part of today's message are you taking with you into battle? Drop it in the comments. Let's build this mindset together.